fifth graders, welcome to part 2 of today's social studies story time. I have my reading buddy Puggles here with me, but I want to keep the camera focused on the story instead of my face this time so you can see the pictures. This is called Let It Begin Here, Lexington and Concord, First Battles of the American Revolution. And we can see the author and illustrator's names right here. Now, on this page, we have a list of who's on which side. The American side, which would be the colonists, and the British side. When we're talking about American side, we would also be talking about the Patriots. You can just ignore this number right here that says 9374. But I want to point out right here, it says Margaret Kemble Gage, General Gage's American wife, who may have secretly informed the Americans of British plans. We're going to hear about her in the story. And I want you to see if you can guess, why might her side be unknown? What role does she play in the battles of Lexington and Concord? All right, here we go. Introduction. Virginia, the first of England's 13 American colonies, was settled in 1607. Americans accepted English rule, so British rule, for about 160 years. When England began taxing the colonists in the 1760s, Americans protested most violently in Massachusetts, which is where Boston is. So things like the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party. On December 16, 1773, a mob directed by Samuel Adams destroyed British tea in Boston Harbor during an incident known as the Boston Tea Party. 3 months later, in March 1774, John Hancock of Boston proposed that the colonies break free from Britain and become the United States of America. Across the colonies, local militias, emergency troops, prepared for possible war with England. On April 14, 1775, General Thomas Gage, Royal Governor of Massachusetts, received secret orders. So even though he's the Royal Governor of Massachusetts, which we know is in what is now the United States, or the colonies at that time, he still is on the British side. Okay, so Royal Governor, you can think of him as being royal under King George III's rule. British leaders, including King George III, wanted him to strike at the Massachusetts rebels, or to strike at the Americans in Massachusetts. Gage sent out a 700-man army under Lieutenant Colonel Francis Smith on the night of April 18. The troops were to arrest Samuel Adams and John Hancock in Lexington, Massachusetts, then destroy American military supplies at nearby Concord. The colonists were cowards who would run away from a fight, predicted one of Gage's officers, Major John Pitcairn. Americans themselves weren't so sure that they could face up to the mighty British army. Let's think a minute about this prediction that the colonists were cowards who would run away from a fight. Do you think that's true? Could they face up to the mighty British army? We're going to find out in this story. Think of a prediction in your mind right now, and we'll see if it comes true. April 18, 1775, 9:30 p.m. Paul Revere, a Boston silversmith and messenger for the Patriots, receives an urgent request to visit Dr. Joseph Warren's home. Upon Paul's arrival, Dr. Warren assigns him a double mission. He must warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock in Lexington, and then the Patriots in Concord, that the British are coming. So here we have Paul Revere pictured and Dr. Warren pictured. And Dr. Warren is telling Paul Revere, warn people in Lexington, warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock in Lexington, and then warn the Patriots, people on the American side who want to break away from Britain, in Concord, that the British are coming. Now, how does Dr. Warren know that the British plan to invade Lexington and Concord? General Gage's American wife may have told him. Margaret Kemble Gage, the person who I showed you on that first page, who is from New Jersey, opposes any action that might hurt her native country and may have betrayed her husband's scheme. I think that's super interesting. General Gage is on the British side, but he's married to an American who might have given away his plan. Very interesting. April 18, 1775, 10 o'clock p.m. Before leaving Boston, Revere stops by a friend's house and tells him, 2 lanterns. The friend hangs 2 lanterns in the steeple of the Old North Church, signaling patriots, Americans, in the area that the British are leaving Boston by boat before marching inland. Were the British leaving by land, Paul would have ordered 1 lantern placed in the steeple. I think it's interesting he's using lanterns to warn people, and he uses 2 because the British are leaving by boat, and he would have used 1 if they were leaving by land. Paul sets out on his journey from Boston to Lexington. The nearly full moon lights the way as 2 friends row Paul across the Charles River to Charlestown. There, the 40-year-old silversmith borrows a fast horse named Brown Beauty and begins the 13-mile ride to Lexington. So you have the 2 friends and Paul in the boat going to Charlestown. Near Cambridge, 2 British officers suddenly bolt out from behind a huge tree and try to capture Paul. Brown Beauty, remember that's his horse, is too fast for them though, and Paul is too skilled a rider. He guides the powerful mare, again that's his horse, onto another road. The 2 officers chase him, but they are soon left far behind. I think this is interesting because it shows that Paul Revere faced some challenges in the midst of trying to warn that the British are coming. On he gallops, warning people along the way that the British are coming. April 19, 1775, 12 a.m. Paul reaches Lexington and bangs the door of the house where Hancock and Adams are staying. Guards outside the house tell Paul to stop making so much noise. "Noise!" yells Paul. "You'll have noise enough before long. The regulars are coming out." Regulars, redcoats, lobsterbacks are what the Americans call the British troops. Adams and Hancock are now awake. "Let him in," Hancock tells the guards. Thanks to Revere's warning, Adams, again that would be Samuel Adams, and John Hancock flee by carriage. Meanwhile, a bell is rung to call Lexington's militiamen to arms. So militiamen would be like soldiers. If they're in Lexington, that means they're on the American side. And if they're being called to arms, that means they need to get prepared to fight or at least be armed with weapons if the British really are coming. April 19, 1775, 1 o'clock a.m. Having completed half his mission, Paul Revere heads for Concord. Along the way, he meets Dr. Samuel Prescott, who is riding home after visiting his fiancée. Prescott offers to help spread the alarm to Concord. This proves to be a stroke of luck. Paul Revere never gets to Concord, for British troops block his way. But Prescott jumps his horse over a stone wall to elude the redcoats. The young doctor, so Prescott rides through the woods and swampland and enters Concord by 2 o'clock in the morning. So interesting, Paul Revere never made it to Concord, but Dr. Prescott, who was willing to help him, did. Following Dr. Prescott's warning, Concord's alarm is sounded. As the bell tolls, townspeople hide military supplies in barns and homes. So if they hear the British are coming, they want to hide their weapons. And Concord's militiamen prepare to fight. So that means there are men like soldiers prepared to fight the British in both Lexington and now in Concord. April 19, 1775, about 5 o'clock a.m. The men of Lexington have been waiting more than 4 hours for the redcoats. So the Americans are waiting for the British to show up in Lexington. Finally, near sunrise, a lookout gallops into Lexington shouting, The lobsterbacks are down the road. Within minutes, about 70